I did.
Okay. I was just messing with it anyway.
1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
Can you hear us? What?
1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
Oh, you know what? Wait a minute. I turned mine off. That's why. I turned it off when I was walking around so you wouldn't hear everything you said.
1, 2, 3. Am I on?
Yeah. You should be on. You know what?
Robert, help me out, bro.
I do too. I think you're on. He's on. Yep.
Hello, everyone. You good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Is it working?
Can y'all? Okay, so I'm going to, excuse me. You're going to face this way, so I'm going to move this up just a little closer.
If you think this feels awkward, you would be correct.
Is it
1, 2,
picking?
3, 4.
Are they hearing you? Maybe just turn it up, Robert. Can you turn up the volume a little bit? We've got a pretty full room, so it's absorbing the sound. You still can't hear me? Is that better? Yes. All right. Alan,
1, 2, 3,
take
4.
your mic and put it in front of your mouth. That's how we're going to have to talk today. We're going to have
1, 2,
handheld
3, 4.
mics.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Just pretend you're back in your singing days and you're eating the
This feels
mic.
even more awkward. Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. I want to thank Alan and welcome him. Thank him for coming all this way. This is a unique privilege, and we know it. Erin, his niece who manages him, let me know that this is not something that they do very often. So consider yourselves lucky. We certainly consider ourselves lucky to have him here. So, Alan, you have taken Macon by storm with your book, Theo of Golden. We all love it, and people are giving it as Christmas presents and just trying to. I had at least 3 people give me a copy ages ago saying, you've got to read this. But we've all come to love Theo and to cherish your book. And I'd like to do this Theo style, and rather than read your bio, have you tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you. So let me begin with this, an explanation of why I don't get to do this very often. One reason is that I'm trying to write. I'm very much a novice author, as you know, and I'm finding the process of writing extremely difficult. So I have to labor at my writing table and just don't have much margin for traveling these days. I also have an almost 98-year-old dad who I've been fortunate to live with the last 3 years, and so he takes some of my time and energy. I have local commitments that I treasure. This morning I went to the high school, as I do 3 days a week, to stand at the back door and greet kids. I've been doing it for 20-something years, and it seems like a very trivial thing, but I think the kids enjoy it, and if they don't, I do. And I love to be home to be able to do things of that sort. But when I do get to leave home, the reason that I enjoy this so much is that it gives me a chance to thank people like you who have blessed me more than you can possibly imagine. I will tell you more about how the book came to be, but everything about Theo has been a shock. To me, it has been a storm of happy lightning, as I have described it. And so tonight, if you don't take anything else away from this gathering, would you please take my profound thanks. Let me begin, too, with an observation. About the same time that Theo was released, David Brooks, who was a popular nonfiction writer and social commentator, wrote a book called How to Know a Person. Came out the same month as Theo. And it's interesting how his book parallels with mine, or mine with his, about just the art of conversation and the beautiful gift that is to us. But I've heard Mr. Brooks speak a couple of times, and I'd like to paraphrase an observation that he has made. He says, writing a book about kindness does not prove that you are a kind person. Reading a book about kindness does not prove that you are a kind person. But buying a book about kindness is proof that you are a kind person. And by that definition, I know that I am in a room filled with kind people tonight. And I really do, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for supporting this little venture that I've been privileged to be a part of the last couple of years. I grew up in Columbus, Georgia. I'm one of 5 kids. We had a real, just a real normal kind of family. I've got my older sister. She works for me. Let me correct that. She used to work for me. I now work for her. I don't know how that happens. But my older sister is with me. I've got a younger brother who passed away 12 years ago. I've got 2 younger sisters. Lots of nieces and nephews. But just have a wonderful family life. We've got our dark spots. We've got our conflict. We've got the things that we don't understand about one another, just like you have in your family. But I was very fortunate to be raised by a mom and a dad who loved each other until their dying day. My mom died a few years ago. My dad is still with us and very vigorous and very frustrating at times. But grew up in Columbus, spent a lot of time outside. Early in life, I think that I realized that I enjoyed words a lot. And read a bit growing up, not as much maybe as I could have, should have, but I read enough and I studied hard enough to do okay in school. I actually began my undergraduate studies after leaving high school in 1974 here in Macon at Mercer. I was here for my first quarter in 1974 and then the duration of 1975. And then I transferred up to the University of Georgia, where I finished my degree there in English, knowing all along that I wanted to go to law school. And I had been told that if I was not good at mathematics, which was very much the case, I should major in something that used words a lot. So I studied English and got my degree, went to law school, survived law school, maybe I should say, and then practiced law for 10 years in Columbus with a firm that had been there for a long, long time. In the early 90s, and this is only possible probably because I'm a never married guy and didn't have the responsibilities of a family, and at that point I didn't have any debt. I left law practice and moved to Edinburgh, Scotland for a couple of years and got a master's in Scottish fiction at the University of Edinburgh. More than anything though, I think those 2 years were just a chance to get my soul back and come up for air. And I began to play the guitar a lot, which I had been doing for years anyway, and writing lots of songs. So I came back to the States in 1992, returned to part-time law practice, civil litigation, and I was playing music on the side. And in 1995-6, I decided I'm going to leave law practice again, and I'm going to be a traveling musician. And so that's what I did, thinking that I would only be able to do it for a couple of years. My career plan was do this for 2 years, go broke, and then go back to law practice. My career plan did not work out. I was able to survive at it and loved what I did for 20-something years. My brother Gary got sick in 2011. I came off the road to spend the last year of his life with him. Best year of my life. I wrote a book about that called The Last Sweet Mile. And then when Gary passed away, I had enjoyed being home and I was really tired. And so I decided no more road life for me. I played a few gigs after that, but I ran for a judgeship in Harris County, Georgia, probate judge, was elected and served there for a term, just shy of a term. And then I left that and I thought, Cleve, what am I going to do with my life? And the idea of writing started to kind of bubble up, and that's why we are here tonight. This is so wonderful that I get to be with you and with the good folks in the overflow room. Can I just say one thing before the next question? Sure. I want to say a couple of thank yous real quick. First to my dear friend Cleve and Kathy Cunningham. I started getting texts and letters not long after Theo had come out. And many of them mentioned Cleve Cunningham, who I did not know. And come to find out, Cleve and Kathy kind of became cheerleaders for Theo early on. I know they're very much involved in this evening. And I just want Cleve and Kathy to say thank y'all for the encouragement that you've given to me. I have also discovered in the last couple of years that the art of letter writing is not lost. Handwritten letters, I got 3 today. And it has been delightful to read handwritten letters and respond to them. But I got one not terribly long ago from Joan Godsey. Where is she tonight? Miss Joan. Miss Joan, I love you. This is my first time to see Miss Joan, but she wrote me the most wonderful letter. And I wrote Miss Joan back hoping that I would see you this evening. And I want you to know, Miss Joan, that I have kept the letter. And if anyone ever dares to say anything unkind about me ever again, I am going to pull out that letter and say, I don't care what you say. Look what Miss Jones said about me. Thank you. We will hug officially at the end of the evening. Okay.
And there will be more books available at the end of this up in the Great Hall. So if you didn't get to get one and want to be kind, then that opportunity will be available to you.
And then, of course, thanks to Cynthia and the vestry here at Christ Church. What a beautiful, beautiful place to spend an evening. Thank you for your hospitality.
Thank you for being here. So while this wasn't your first book, it was your first novel. And I enjoyed reading the book about Gary, too, by the way.
Thank you.
He was quite a man.
Quite a man.
Tell us about how Theo of Golden was first conceived and some of the places and people in the book, to what extent they're real places and people. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So when I was a singer-songwriter, which I was, like I said, for 20 years or so, I realized early on when I undertook that vocation that my job really was to pay attention. I wrote a lot of songs, and I'm very, very proud to say that in my career as a singer-songwriter, I made literally hundreds of dollars. But I love to write songs. And I mean, there were years that it was my goal every day to write a new song, which meant that I had to wake up attentive to find the seed corn for what the song of the day was going to be. And it just made life, and it made the imagination active and very interesting for me. And even though I've left music now, I've kind of carried that habit with me. And so I'm constantly jotting down ideas for songs and now ideas for stories. So I'm in a coffee shop in Columbus, Georgia one day. It's one of my favorite places to go because of the artwork. The coffee is excellent, but the artwork is divine. There is an artist, a dear, dear friend of mine named Gary Pound. I believe Jim and Brinkley are here tonight. Jim would be Gary's brother. And I love to go to the coffee shop just to look at the portraits, 92 of them. And I will get my coffee and then just peruse the walls. And I have looked at many of these portraits over and over and over, but just the way that Gary composes his work is always jaw-dropping to me in its beauty and its detail. And so one day I placed my order for coffee. I had to wait a few minutes, and I was walking around the room, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to buy all of these portraits and find their rightful owners and return them, or give them to, bestow them on the people that the portraits were of. So I bought 5 of the portraits that day, and I took them home with me. And for some reason, that idea just would not leave my mind. And I had no story idea in mind. There was no narrative arc that I was going to live under for 2 or 3 years. I just thought, let me just start writing scenes and developing characters from these 5 portraits on my floor. So there's Manette, there's Kendrick, there's Basil. And I started to write scenes of encounters between this person who I did not yet know anything about, and then Theo started to surface. I thought an elderly man with a keen aesthetic sensitivity and a heart of kindness would be a good bestower. And then the story started coming together. The setting for the story is loosely Columbus, Georgia. We have a river, as you know, that divides us from Phoenix City. So we've got the river that separates the states. We've got a median in the old downtown. Our downtown, probably like Macon and most cities in the South, was laid out on a grid. And so I was thinking, okay, if I set it in this sort of place, it's going to be very recognizable, at least to other Southerners, if anyone ever reads it. And so someone in Columbia or Augusta or Atlanta or Montgomery, Birmingham, they could easily read the story, maybe Macon, and say, oh, I know this place. I know this promenade. I know these fountains. I know the way this community is laid out geographically. And so I had my setting, and then the characters just began to invent themselves. I think all of the characters in some way are probably composites of other people I have known, which I think would not be unusual for the writing of fiction. But there were really none that were actual people that I could point to and say, this person is this. I still don't know who the 5 people in my portraits are, except for Ellen. Last week I was in Columbus, last week or week before, with having lunch with Gary Pound, my artist friend. And we were sitting out at a little table on the sidewalk, and he said, would you like to meet Ellen? And I said, you know, I've seen her a couple of times here before, but I've just always been rather bashful to introduce myself. He said, well, I will introduce you. And I said, no, don't do that. I will introduce myself. And so after we finished the meal, I went and sat down on a bench right beside her and asked if I could sit with her. She said yes. And I don't know why this was the question that I asked, but I said, do you know who I am? And she looked and she said, you're Allen. And we had the most delightful conversation. But she's the only person that I can identify by the portraits. But everyone else came out of thin air, except for the little Guatemalan man who was referred to through the book. And he was actually a defendant in my court when I served as a judge. But the story, it was really difficult because I had no idea what the story was. And so I'd write for a month or 2 months, then I'd just give up and I'd say, I'm through, I can't do this anymore. And then I'd pick it up a couple of months later and try it again. And I just kept plugging away at it. And when I finished it, I put it in a drawer and I said, mission accomplished, I'm done. You want me to keep telling the story? I'm talking a lot. I told Cynthia
that was the plan.
Yeah. I told Cynthia I'm a runaway train. So I finished the book and was very pleased that I had proven to myself that I had the discipline and the stamina to write a long piece of fiction. Well, there's 5 friends of mine. We've been meeting once a year for a long weekend for 20 years now. We'll be meeting in a couple of years for this year's meeting. They knew that I had been attempting to write a piece of fiction. And they had been very supportive of the work that I did as a musician. And so one year at our annual gathering, they said, well, how's your book, your thing coming? And I said, I finished it. And they said, well, where is it? What are you going to do with it? And I said, it's in the drawer under the bed. It's somewhere over there. And they said, well, we'd like to read it. And I said, well, it's pretty rough. We'd like to read it. So I let all of them read it. And because I trust their judgment more than my own, I took very seriously their affirmation of the story and the book. And furthermore, took their advice when they said, you should do something with this. And so I pulled it out, dusted it off, tweaked it a bit, and said, okay, now what do I do? And that's when I hired my sister's daughter, Erin, who is, she really is the one that runs the show for us now. But I said, Erin, I'm going to write, and you are going to figure out everything about publishing a book, self-publishing a book. I'm too old to look for an agent or a traditional publisher. We're just going to see if we can sell a few books. And so that's what we did. And it wasn't long before I started getting letters with Cleve Cunningham's name in them, and letters like those that Miss Joan wrote to me. And I realized, okay, there's a story here. And I might just add this as a footnote, and I don't mean to bring my faith into this in some impolite sort of way, but there was not a day that I wrote that I didn't pray. As a songwriter, I prayed when I wrote songs, God, will you please give me words? Will you give me some image? Will you give me a storyline, a narrative that would bless the people who either hear this song or read this book? And so as the book started to take off a bit, I just realized, well, this is exactly what you prayed for. You might not sell many of them. That might still be the case, but there is at least affirmation that people like you have come to this story with your hearts open, which is the best way to read a story like this, I think, and you have allowed it to touch you. And I think that your presence here tonight is proof of that. But again, I go back to what I started with. More than I can possibly say, thank you for reading the book and for encouraging us the way that you have.
I think we've passed the not selling many of them. A few short answer questions, and then I'll give you another meaty one.
Okay.
Why is the coffee shop called The Chalice? I know the original one is not named that.
Yeah. You know, that is actually, it was explained in a chapter that I cut from the book. When I finished the long manuscript, I realized I probably need to take 100 pages out of this, and I did. And the chalice, in fact, the story of the coffee shop, the way that came to be was explained at length. I just like the ring of the words, for starters, the chalice, and then of course the significance of the chalice. It has a Christian connotation to it, and that is explained in the book as well. But the chalice as a place of communion, a place where we come together to live life deeply, to celebrate life, to celebrate redemption. It just felt like a good name for a coffee shop. There were a couple of paragraphs, though, where I explained probably 20 or 30 other options, many of them rather humorous. And maybe one of these days we'll post that as bonus material, or we'll turn it into another book or something. It seems like such a waste to do all that work and not do something with it.
Maybe in the next edition.
Could be.
Also, someone was asking about the name Golden.
Yeah. So as I was writing the story, the names of the characters, I would like to say that I gave lots and lots and lots of thought to them, but actually I didn't. I just kind of grabbed a placeholder, thinking I will go back and fix some of these names later. And there were a couple that I did that with, but names of characters just kind of, whatever came to my mind, that's who they still are, most of them. Golden just felt like it had the feel of what I wanted the story to feel like. Something that was radiant, a place of light, and I like to think that maybe the book contains a lot of light in it, especially the kindness of Theo. But early in the process of writing, I thought this is a good chance to take a trip that I can expense as a business expense. And so I went to Portugal and did some research. I researched, a little bit about the landscape. I researched port at great length, and I discovered
that was some fun research.
Yeah, you got it. And I discovered where Theo had grown up. The Douro River, which is in the northern part of the country, Douro, I think I state this in the book, means golden. And so I thought there was this nice symmetry between this city in the American South and this portion of Portugal in the north of the country, bound by a river. And so that was something of an explanation, yeah.
Yeah. What about the significance of the eye-shaped scar on the oak tree near the chalice that some of the older black residents called the Eye of God?
Yeah, the Eye of God. So one day I was having lunch with a niece of mine, and we were sitting again outside at a cafe, and there are a lot of big oak trees in the promenade, the median of Columbus. And I was looking at the trees. I was always looking for things that I could write about, ideas that I could turn into a paragraph or a page or a chapter. And there was a crescent, looked like a crescent moon. And while I was eating lunch and looking at it, it just dawned on me it looked like an eye. I will tell you that for the last 20 plus years of my life, I have attended an African American church. It is my church home. I'm the sole white guy in the church. And I love the rhetoric and the life of the African Americans in my community. And I'm very sensitive to what many of them, most of them are elderly now, have grown up with. I'm very sensitive to the fact of some of the things that happened in that median in the past. And so I thought, I want to draw some attention to this, and the eye of God just seemed like a good way to do that. And I like the image. If you ever come to Columbus and walk through the promenade, the median there, you will notice that there are lots of trees that have little crescent-shaped cuttings. It's where they apparently in the past arborists have cut branches. But I like the image of the eye of God, that throughout this story, that there is deity that is above it all. It's orchestrating the steps, somewhat redeeming the hard parts, helping people to see the beauty in their own souls. Yeah, I like the image a lot.
I believe you said at some point that listening was Theo's superpower. He made it dangerously easy for people to talk. This gift of listening with love and compassion and responding with words and acts of encouragement was a theme that ran throughout the book. Tell us more about that message and what you're trying to convey to your readers.
Yeah, I think I was trying to convey an aspiration that I have for myself, that I will be a better listener. I think that we probably all could say that to be true about ourselves, maybe not all of us. But what a gift it is to listen. And that is something that I do think maybe now at 69, I have acquired a strong taste for. I love to hear people's stories. And of course that requires that we listen. It's something that maybe as a culture we're not terribly good at the present moment. But Theo was a master at it. And it is a superpower. Just ask the question. Tell me your story, and then just sit quietly. And when it gets uncomfortable, just sit quietly a little while longer, and your interlocutor will probably give you a reply that leads to a really wonderful conversation. But I think that Theo, again, we know, most of you probably having read the book, know that he was a patient man, and he was genuinely curious. I think we can listen, or we can fake listening without actually doing it well. But if we are curious, and if we are genuinely loving, as this character I hope came across as, then listening becomes an art form. And it really does become a way that souls kind of connect in the middle. But I would confess to you that I've got a long way to go in perfecting the art form myself, but I'm working at it.
Tell us about the way Theo saw the person behind the facade. He looked beneath the surface and past the hurt to the goodness that the person themselves might have even lost sight of.
Yeah, so Theo, again, this quiet, curious, affectionate listener, was always looking for more than what the person saw in themselves, probably. You might know the phrase imago Dei, the image of deity, the image of God. For many of the characters in the book, maybe all of them, they had lost touch with the reality that they were image bearers of God, like all of us are image bearers of God. And so rather than stop just on the externals and just to the biographical information about the people he was speaking with and meeting and trying to bless, he was trying to bring to the surface this reality that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. The idea of beauty is one that runs all through the book. There's a wonderful passage in the ancient text of Isaiah where it says that the Messiah would bestow upon us a crown of beauty instead of ashes. He will bestow on us a crown of beauty instead of ashes. And I think that's what Theo was about, was finding people who saw their own existence maybe as little more than ashes of defeat. Think Minette, think Tony, think Catherine, think Basil, think Kendrick, think all of those characters who would have found it very hard to believe that there was something beautiful, splendid about their souls. And Theo kind of cut through all of that to make them realize you are capable of saintliness. You bear the image of God. And then I think we can all imagine that those people hopefully pondered what they were told. Maybe they were encouraged by Theo when they had sidewalk conversations or chance encounters to be reminded of just how splendidly God had made them to be. So the listening, the image of God, the encouragement that Theo brought to these people was obviously the heart and soul of the story. And we need that for ourselves. We need that for ourselves, if you will allow me to preach just a minute. We need that for ourselves. Not just to see the image of God in ourselves, but in everyone around us. And to listen with a just and loving gaze on people who are different than us. And try to cross the divides, even where we are different, even where there may be polarities in us. That is my prayer for the outcome of this book, is that people would see the better angels of their nature. There's another ancient text that says this: we should provoke one another to love and good deeds. Provoke one another to love and good deeds. I'd like to think that Theo is a provocation to us, in the same way that we can be a provocation to one another. Maybe provocation is not the best word. Maybe inspiration would be better. I like provocation. But maybe that is the takeaway that we could have from the book, is that we would be provoked to love and to live lives of good deeds toward one another, with heaven as the backdrop against everything that we do.
So this is a little bit redundant, this question, and you can tell me if it's too redundant. Throughout the book, there's a theme of redemption and transformation, even in the presence of sadness and loss. Theo's name means gift from God, which I would imagine is by design. Tell us about this as a theme and Theo's role in this process in the lives of others.
Yeah, let me tie that back in, if I might, to beauty. If in fact we are the beneficiaries of crowns of beauty, how does that operate in our life? Well, Theo exemplified that, I hope, strongly when he was a little boy and went to the museum and heard the string quartet playing the music of Bach. Something about that beauty touched him. When he saw the Fisher painter on the shore of the river, and he stopped and watched that man paint, there was something about beauty and the man trying to capture the moment that spoke to Theo's heart. When he was talking about milkweed, of all things, Asclepius variegata with Asher, they were talking about beauty and that. But most significantly in the course of the story, when Theo had been through his tragic loss, you might remember he went through his walking season. There was no stillness in his soul. He couldn't sit still. He was trying to get away from whatever this thing was that was torturing him about the loss of his daughter. And then finally he sat still, right? He sat still. He paid attention to the colors of the sunset. He heard the laughter of the children. He could sense the change of the seasons and the beauty of it. And then lastly, there were the birds, the murmurations that captured his heart like 50,000 treble hooks. So beauty was transformative and redemptive in Theo's life. And I would say that the paragraphs following those in the book are the ones that really explain the man that Theo became, when he was able, in the midst of his sadness, to have hope. The things that he had heard in the church building, the things he had heard from the priest, the images he had seen in the artwork, the stories that his grandmother had told him, and the prayers that she had prayed in his presence. All of those things coalesced, and that's when Theo took hold of the hope of heaven, and it changed him forever. And he was able, because he had been changed, I think, to help other people see there is hope even in our sadness. It's interesting, when I finished the book, and we were just about to send it off for publication, I thought, I want to add a couple of more things. One about Theo. And it ended up being that very short chapter on sadness. And I did it at the 11th hour and the 59th minute. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew this man has lived a real life in a real world, which means that he has suffered, because we all do. Some of us do it better than others. Some of us do it for less reason than others. But nobody who is alive and awake can endure this world or this life without hurt and suffering and sadness. And because Theo had been there, he knew an act of kindness, a vision of beauty, something of that sort can have tremendous power in the life of another. From that, maybe I can take this as a practice. Look for ways to share beauty with people. It may be over a meal, it might be in a conversation, it might be in a song, it might be in a beautiful letter, it might be in a flower, it might be in a prayer. But every chance we get, try to bring beauty to this world. The ancient text again tells us, he has made everything beautiful in its time. Ecclesiastes 3. God has set eternity in our hearts. Theo had that in his heart. And he has made everything beautiful in its time. And the more beauty we bring to the world, the more it's going to look like the kingdom that I think we all hunger for deep down in our souls. And I hope that the character. Can I tell y'all something about y'all? I'll tell you a story that will make the point better than an explanation. So this guy shows up real late to work one day. And the boss catches him at the door and just really lets him have it. You were supposed to be here an hour ago, weren't you? And the guy said, I'm so sorry, but I bumped into this guy on the sidewalk who I've not seen in a long time, and he would not stop listening. At the rate we are going, we will be here all night.
There's something awfully appropriate about that chapter going in at the 11th hour and 59th minute. I find that's how God answers our prayers, at the 11th hour and 59th minute. The next question, again, you've already started to answer. Tell us a little bit about Theo as an artist and the importance of art, color, and beauty in the book.
I probably touched on that a little bit already. I do have this strong conviction that because we are the image bearers of God, God being creative, we are creative ourselves. And that art in our lives might take many, many different expressions. Some might be artists with diesel engines. Somebody might be an artist with a scalpel and medical implements. Somebody might be an artist with words, or with color, or with music. You know what I'm trying to say. The problem is many times because of our fear, we kind of let a lot of those things, especially the artistic sorts of gifts, fall by the wayside. There's a tragic quote attributed to Oliver Wendell Holmes. He says, "Most people die with all of their songs still in them." And I think that's the tragedy of growing up and comparing ourselves to one another and thinking, well, I'm not as good as her painting, so I'm never going to try. Or I'm not as good running, so I'm not going to do that. Or I'm not very good in conversation, so I'm just not going to ever try that with anybody. Little kids are fearless, right? Ask a little kid, if you ever go to an elementary school, who would like to come to the blackboard and draw something? How hard is it to get a volunteer? Not very. But at some point in life as we grow up, something just squelches that in us. Theo, as a young boy, he would benefit from the love and the encouragement of his grandmother. She bought him some art supplies. Can I tell y'all something that's getting ready to happen in my life? This is really bad timing. But I got a call a few months ago from this wonderful woman up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she had read the book and had gotten my number somehow. And she said, I understand you would like to paint, learn to paint. And I said, with all my heart. And it's true, I would. She said, well, I teach painting. She said, I've been doing it for decades now. She said, I don't mean to drop names, but do you know Tony Bennett? And I said, yeah, I've heard of him before. She said, well, I gave Tony Bennett lessons. He was a really wonderful artist, painter. That's what he did when he was on the road doing gigs. And then she named some other notables. And she said, I would like to teach you how to paint. She said, I just need 3 days. We will use 4 colors. We will use 1 brush. And she said, I promise you, you will leave with at least a level of belief that you could be a painter sort of artist, and you'll have a picture that you're not embarrassed about. So next Tuesday, I have my first art lesson as an adult, and I am so excited about it. It's a terrible time to take up a new hobby because I'm trying to write a novel right now, but I'm really excited about it. And I would say to all of us, it's like the old trope, it's never too late to dream a new dream. It's never too late to learn something new. I think one thing that my sister and I, and we've talked with our dad about this, have learned is that we should always try to keep our mind curious enough that we're willing to learn something new and step outside the box, And gosh, the world is so full of wonder. There's so much to explore. There is so much to look at, talk about, see, study, observe, that I can't imagine how any of us ever get bored in this life. But yeah, art is obviously a big part of Theo's life. We learned that at the end, right? Mm-hmm. For sure.
So maybe you can let go of the guilt and just consider the artwork cross-training.
Yeah, good. Yes.
Yeah. So you said that your mission is to use creative gifts to provoke Godward thought, whether it was in your music or your writing and now perhaps your art. Talk to us some more about the importance of your faith and ways that your book is bearing witness to the character and nature of God.
Thank you. Hey, let me just say this before I answer the question in a spirit of full disclosure. I have been very privileged to do some talks in settings like this, and I am not timid about my faith. I'm unashamed of the fact that I am a follower of Christ. It is central to everything that I am and everything that I do. But I am unwavering in my love for people who do not share that perspective. And if you are here tonight and you don't share that perspective, this is not a bait and switch. We came to talk about a book tonight. We didn't come to talk religion. And I don't mean to answer questions in a way that might be off-putting or offensive to you. But I can't be honest about myself if I don't. And I have tried before to answer questions that are talking about the core of who I am without making any reference to my faith. And I always go home feeling like a fraud. And so if you are here tonight and you happen to be someone who, is either decidedly against anything spiritual or religious, thank you for coming. And I love you. And Theo, if he were here, he would sit right next to you and ask you, please tell me your story. But when I left law practice to be a musician, so I'm in my late 30s or early 40s when I did that, and I was thinking, so what do I think I'm going to accomplish as a musician? There's so many wonderful musicians everywhere. Why am I doing this? And this was at a time when y'all might remember we were all writing mission statements. It was just kind of a thing that we did back, a couple decades ago. Well, it felt like a good exercise to me. And so I sat down and I spent probably a couple of hours in my studio just writing something that would give definition to my creative pursuits going forward. And I know the songs I like to write. I never did particularly want to play in church buildings or in religious settings. I wanted to be out in the marketplace, out in the world. But I used to write really quirky songs that worked in a lot of different environments. But I knew I wanted to be more than just an entertainer. I wanted the music that I wrote to be more than just amusing. Y'all might know the derivation of that word, amusement. If you take the letter A and put it in front of anything, asexual, arrhythmic, apolitical, it negates the word that follows, right? Muse means to ponder. It means to think. Muse means you don't do that. There was a very notable book written by Neil Postman years ago called Amusing Ourselves to Death. I did not want to write songs that simply amused. I wanted to help. I wanted to encourage people to think. I need people in my life that help me to think. And rather than just looking at things as they are, ask, why are they that way, and what can I do? What can we do to make this world a better place? And so I sat down and started scratching out ideas for what my mission was as a musician. And that's what I came up with, that very simple thing. I want to write songs, at the time now, books, that provoke Godward thought. That leaves plenty of room for humor. It leaves plenty of room for whimsy. The songs can be strange and hard to follow sometimes. But at the back of it all, my hope is that people would say, I wonder what that song about those two little boys comparing their muscles was really about. I wonder what that song about that Easter egg that didn't get found at the Easter egg hunt was really about. I wonder what that guy meant when he wrote that story about that woman who couldn't go near water anymore because of what happened to her as a child. I wonder what he really meant by that. And I always prayed. I still pray before I get in front of any people. God, please, only you can make it happen. But would you take our minds and our hearts up and take our thoughts to a place that maybe they haven't been before, to the end that we would be better for it. So that's where that comes from. Yeah.
How does Theo mirror Jesus Christ in some of the distinctive ways that he interacts with people and perhaps even in his death?
That sounds like a very overtly religious question to me.
I did warn you.
I love it because as Cynthia has pointed out, the name Theo, it is a God word. Theology, theophany, theodicy. And that was exactly why I chose the name. I will tell you this little footnote, though. Jim and Brinkley, y'all are here tonight. You know this. Theo of Golden. The artist, my dear friend Gary Pound, had a grandfather named Theo Golden. I had forgotten that while I was writing the book, and somebody pointed it out to me after it was published. And then, of course, I said, well, I meant that all along. So Theo, yes, was a nod toward deity. Let me share a definition with you that I learned recently about love. This is from C.S. Lewis. He says, love is not a mere feeling. It is a deep unity maintained by discipline, reinforced by the grace that we ask and receive from God, and something like, yes, strengthened by habit. Maintained by the will, strengthened by habit, reinforced by the grace that God gives us. That describes to me the love of Christ. I'm sure that he felt, as one of us, he felt the things that we feel. Love had a feeling attached to it. But his love was more than merely a feeling. It was a deep unity. It is the thing that holds everything else together, we're taught. But maintained by the will. Think about it. An 86-year-old man who could be resting on his laurels decides, I am going to live for more than fame. I'm going to do more than just, look at my stock certificates. I'm going to will myself into a meaningful life. And at 26, 56, 86, we can do it if we are loving people, maintained intentionally, and then deliberately strengthened by habit. The fact that Theo had a calendar, at least in his mind, I know I'm going to be at the bench at 7 o'clock on those nights. I know I'm going to be at the restaurant that night. I know I'm going to read with Lamisha on those days. He had a life that was full of purpose, and because of that, he structured it around that great aim that he had of loving people. There's another quote by C.S. Lewis that I love. He says, God does not love us, and I would put Theo in there too, does not love us because we are lovable, but because he is love. Not because he needs to receive, but because he delights to give. And in the same way, I think that Theo lived that out. He was not loving people because they were necessarily lovable. They weren't all the time. None of us are. Not even him. But he determined, I'm going to love the people of this community. I'm going to do it as quietly as I can, because I have been taught, don't let my left hand know what my right hand is doing. I'm going to do this for no applause of men, but I'm going to maintain these habits as an act of my will, and I'm going to do them routinely. And maybe I was writing that more to myself than anybody, because my life is all over the place lots of times. But I think in the same way that Jesus, when he was among us, loved us as an act of his will. Certainly the great sacrifice he made to us was as an act of his will. And his life was strengthened by habit. We know that he used to retreat to pray, to read. He would get his friends and he would get them away from the crowd lots of times. That was an intentional act of the will. And we know that he prayed because he knew that he, like we more so than him, need to be reinforced by the grace that God gives us if we will ask him for it. And that, I think, is the life that Theo lived. I will say this, that there were things about Theo's life that I intentionally left out because I wanted everybody to read the story. And you will notice, I'll just go ahead and tell you, early in the book, I start making these references to heaven. I could have used a lot of words at that point when Theo was talking about the core of his heart and the basis of his faith. But that was the word that I chose because I didn't want anyone to close the book too early. And I prayed if that was the wrong thing to do that God would forgive me, but I have reason to believe that God has blessed it. So
why did he have to die?
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! I get asked that a lot, and usually much angrier than you answered it. It just felt like the right thing to do, and I knew once I had the story kind of figured out, I knew how I wanted to end it. The reveal there at the end. And I think too, Cynthia, the reason that I probably went that way again is because I did not want anybody to say, God, that's a sweet story. Yeah. I did not want anybody to say that is a sweet story. I hoped that people would read it and say, whoever this guy is, he lives in the same world that I live in, where soldiers accidentally kill children, and where drunk drivers kill people, and where fathers abandon their daughters, and old men die. Good old men die. And so I think that it was a nod to authenticity that it happened that way. Did it have to happen in that particular way? Maybe not, but when I wrote it, I knew this is the right way to frame this story going forward. Y'all forgive me if I hurt your feelings when I did that.
I actually put the book down for a while when I could kind of see that was something bad was coming, because I had come to love the characters so much, he and also the cellist. Simone. I was really upset that something was going to happen to Simone, and I didn't want to read it. So
Simone is fine. He's okay.
Yeah, good. We don't have that privilege in life of being able to just put the book down when things are getting ugly. But I did pick it back up and read it, and when I read it, I really appreciated that ending, and also all that we learned at the very end, and it made me go back and reread pieces of the book.
Good. Thank you.
So I really appreciated the way you did that. And how did you originally decide to hold back some information until the end as a big reveal, or was that just something that evolved?
No, I knew early on that that's how I wanted to end it.
Yeah.
Good. In fact, I told Gary, Jim, and Brinkley when I talked to him and first told him about the idea that I wanted him to know what was coming. But that kind of came first. And I will tell you this, that I'm working on another book now, and the first chapter of the book that I wrote is the last chapter. And I'm certain that it's the right ending to the next story that I hope I can finish. Yeah.
Good. I hope so too.
Thank you.
Somebody asked to ask him when the next book was coming out, and anybody who knows any artists know that they don't know when it's going to be finished. So you and I spoke earlier about the way our culture has changed so much with all of our devices, all of technology making it unnecessary to be in person, to communicate with others.
Yeah.
You said in that conversation, his kingdom works best when we are close enough to touch the people around us. Theo insisted on these in-person visits, even sitting close together on the park bench, and he wrote handwritten notes. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so that is perfect. That is perfect. You are forgiven. So you might have noticed, and this was very, very intentional on my part, there is hardly any reference to technology in the book. There is the Thanksgiving meal where Pierce Glisson shows up with his phone and just cannot control himself. There was the conversation on the bench when Theo was trying to have a conversation and Pierce is there on his phone berating Minette. That was very deliberate. And it may not be true to the way that we live life these days, but I just wanted to create a world where we could imagine that technology is not nearly as important as it seems to have become. And so that was something that I was very cautious of as I read the story, or wrote the story. You might remember, too, there was a scene where Mrs. Gidley says to Theo, why don't you just buy all of the portraits and do it at one time? Have a gala, make a splash, we can get the media. And Theo fiercely resisted that because Theo believed in the incarnation. Incarnation, becoming flesh, God becoming flesh, us becoming flesh to one another, living life in proximity. Another thing that is conspicuously absent. I wrote this, I started writing it in, I think, 2019. I'm not positive, but I think the first scratches were in 2019. I was writing this all during COVID, and I had to make a decision. Do I make any reference to COVID in this book? I did not. And I have not had a single person, unless you are here tonight, who has asked me, why didn't you mention COVID? I just wanted to, again, to remind us that there is a world without quarantine and social distancing. Theo was insistent that he wanted to be close to people. He wanted to be able to look at them. He wanted to hear their voices with his own ears. And again, back to the statement about the kingdom being lived best when we are close enough to touch one another. I just believe that. I know we can do a lot of things, miraculous, wonderful things by screens. We can do a lot of things remotely. We can do a lot of things from a distance. But at the end of the day, the people that we know best and love most and can serve most and argue with the most and enjoy life with the most are the people that are probably sitting with you tonight. And that is right after the way of Jesus. There's a group of men that meet on my porch every Thursday morning. We've been meeting now for about 25 years. There's 35 or 45 of us on a typical week. The first time that we met was to pray for our high school kids. We just got an annual, we passed it around, and we called out all the names of the high school kids. Because one of the group, it was just 5 people at the time, wondered, are there young people in our community who've never been prayed for? And to us, that was a horrible possibility. So we said, well, we're going to call all of their names out. And we did it. But one morning we were talking, and the question came up, going back to the question about sadness. Do you think we get sad as we get older, sadder as we get older? And the consensus of these older men was, yes, we do get sadder. But the way that we help one another through those times is not from a great distance, but up close, incarnationally, being in proximity to one another. And I think that Theo stood glowingly for that proposition that we We live life up close. We live in community, in koinonia. I can tell it's time for us to go.
I'm not reading the room that way.
Well, let's keep going then. Let's keep going.
Close, but not quite. I mean, if
Cynthia,
you all
remember
need
this.
if you all need to leave, we give you permission to get up and go. We won't be keeping you a lot longer, but we're not quite finished.
And thank y'all again for being such good listeners. I've told people close to me that the awkward thing about this is talking so much about myself. I cannot think of anything less interesting to take up an hour of life with than doing this. But thank y'all for bearing with
So that's why you feel like it's becoming less
thanks.
interesting.
I was really saying I'm tired of talking about myself.
Well, we're not quite tired of listening yet, so I just have a little bit more to ask. You've already talked about everyone being capable of saintliness and the importance of encouragement, but there was something that I wanted to ask you about that was in your reader's guide. I imagine some of you have read that. At the very end of it, you said, "I am thankful for the Theo in you." What hopes do you have for your readers as they read this book?
That's a typical inscription in the book. I am thankful for the Theo in you. And I think that can be understood one of two ways. The one that I think everyone could take away from that is, I believe, and I do, that inside all of us is a well of kindness if we will only dip down into it and use it and share it. So there is a Theo in everyone in this room tonight. There is the capability to bless the world, to bless your neighbor, to love your enemy, to help your community. Same for me. No matter where we are, there is always a way to do that. The second meaning, maybe a little more nuanced, is that I am thankful for the image of God in you, the Theo, the Heavenly Father in you. And I am. And I do give thanks. Whenever I'm signing the books or when I was writing the book, it would be, again, that people would realize there is this thing that is in me that is indestructible. It will outlive every political party the world will ever see. It will outlive everything, every institution the world will ever see. This thing that is called the Imago Dei, the image of God in us. And to say, I am thankful for the Theo in you is just it's as much a prayer as it is an affirmation to the reader of the book. And when the books go out, I always pray that people will see it for both meanings. Can I tell you a real quick story? When Erin and I started our business, she asked me, she's a really brilliant young woman. She said, "Okay, Uncle Allen, we need to define success." I said, "Okay." She said, "We got to have some metrics. I mean, how are we going to know that we're really doing good as a self-published author and his team of one?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to put your mind at ease. We have already succeeded. I wanted to write a book. I don't need the money. Never did. I wanted to see if I could write a book. And I wrote the book. And to me, success is one day dying and taking my little book and standing before my God and saying, I made this for you. And I hope that will come true one of these days. But the idea of success being that rather than a marketplace sort of thing. This is way better. You and me, us being together, this is way better than selling a gazillion books. Just knowing that a room full of people read the book and again came to it with their hearts open. When I left law practice for the first time, someone told me, and I've never forgotten this, because she knew I would be making my living in front of audiences. I had to please the people who were sitting there. She said, just always remember, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the applause of the nail-scarred hands. And as a writer, I'm trying to put that same ethic to work as a novelist. I'm still very new at it, but if I fail commercially, but can still feel or hear, I think I will die happy.
And when you come before the Lord with your little book, he will say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Okay, so do we want to know what's coming? Do you want to ask about a sneak preview on the book, or do you want to go on up to the reception? Maybe head on up to the reception and save it for a surprise?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's coming. I'm working on another book right now. It will be a sequel. It's called Allen of Golden, and she is really rough to wrestle to the mat. But I'm working on it, and my goals will be just the same. That people will come to a book with their hearts open and be changed for the better. Y'all are the best. Thank you for sharing your evening with us tonight.